Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Gamblecast. My name is Richard Delaney from Gambling.com, and today I am joined by our resident in-house boxing expert, Lee Gwilliam, for a very special episode. Lee, how are you today?
I'm dying a little bit of the man flu, but we'll try and get through it.
That won't stop us. Today, we are providing you guys with the ultimate breakdown and the best betting options for the fight between defending WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder and the undefeated challenger and former lineal heavyweight champ Tyson Fury. This is a massive fight taking place on December 1st at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Lee, I don't want to waste too much time here. I want to get straight into it with you. Let's talk. So most bookies have Wilder as a very slim favourite at the moment, and that to me makes an outright bet quite hard to pursue. Before we get into the nitty gritty of the betting and have a look at it more in depth, give this to us in a nutshell. Fury against Wilder, is this the fight that everyone is hyping it up to be?
Yeah and no. I mean, look, it's not the best heavyweight division we've ever had, right? So it's never going to be a truly great fight. This is not kind of Ali, Foreman, or Frazier or anything like that. There's no Rumble in the Jungle. There's no Tyson Holyfield. But what we do have is two undefeated fighters. One who ended Klitschko's reign in Fury, and the other who has 39 knockouts in 40 fights in Wilder. So it's as exciting as it's going to get right now, and it's still a big fight. So even though these fighters aren't all-time greats, they are still what I would call world-level fighters, and it will be a very entertaining bout. And also, if Wilder wants to say he genuinely deserves a shot at Anthony Joshua, you know, sort of on achievement rather than being the no one else out there right now, a win over Fury would solidify his credentials and make a Wilder-Joshua fight, you know, that much bigger. That would turn out to be the great fight we're looking for. I guess lastly, and most importantly for the fans who just want to watch the game, the old boxing slogan, you know, you listen to people like Max Kellerman and Teddy Atlas, it's styles makes fights. Yeah. That's what all people will say, right? And opposing techniques, or well, lack of them in my opinion in Wilder's case, could make this a very interesting bout. It makes it tough to call and a lot of fun for the neutral.
So some might argue what you said there. They might say that it's unfair to say the division isn't very good right now, especially with, you know, British boxing. There's so much talent and there's a lot of energy around the sport right now. You know, what's your thinking there?
Well, I think, you know, you have to be realistic about these things. I guess it depends how much boxing you've watched and how much history there is. I don't think it's unfair, no. I mean, I'm excited by the fact British boxing is bringing through a lot of prospects, but we do need to be realistic about the state of the competition. I mean, like, who's the big three right now in the heavyweight division, right? It's Fury, Wilder, and Joshua. So let's take a look at Fury. Now, Fury might have been a world-class fighter once upon a time, right? But he was out for nearly 3 years, and he went to hell and back physically and mentally in that time. I guess you saw the interview he did with Joe Rogan, where he's talking about his mental health issues and stuff. Like, it's a hard thing to come back from. It's hard to write him off because on the right day, he really can be a big, great fighter. But you just don't know who's going to show up, you know, the killer or the clown. His biggest fight when he beat Klitschko, that was right at the end of Vladimir's career. Klitschko had very much become a safety fighter by that point. He was nearly 40. And he was training under Emmanuel Stewart, who's a very defensive coach. There's an argument to say if Vladimir had pressed Fury more, he might not have lost to him. And disregarding, you know, the great Ukrainian, other than Chisora and maybe Christian Hammer, Fury's never really beaten anyone before who was top draw. But at least in my opinion, I don't know whether you disagree. You know, But Chisora, let's remember, he lost to Dylan White and Pulev, who both lost to Joshua. Hammer lost to Joshua and Povetkin, who was later beaten by Joshua and had already beaten by Klitschko. So Fury's only had to face one world-class fighter in his career. Though he did show it, he could do it on the night when everyone doubted him. Lennox Lewis for this fight said, you know, that he dismissed him last time and he's not going to this time because he really surprised him. The worry is he didn't really continue to progress in his experience. So, like, he was in his late 20s last time and he should have carried on fighting and he would have got better and better, and he didn't. You know, after his ban, obviously, he relinquished the title and that was it. He's 3 years out. So I'm not sure.
So the thing that interests me about Fury is there's, you know, a year or two back, I remember watching a couple of videos that he posted on social media saying things like, you know, he's eating pies and drinking beer as part of his training regime, this sort of stuff. It's like he kind of positions himself as this sort of anti-athlete. Is that Is that a part of the game that he's playing, do you think?
I don't know whether it's just a game. I mean, there's a certain amount of mind game stuff with Fury, but you also have to bear in mind, like, he's the Gypsy King, right? He was raised with fighting, he was raised with that culture, and he was raised that, like, to him, fighting's not just a sport. I think this is the important thing to remember. The whole Fury family are fighters, and I mean fighters and not boxers. One or two of them are incredibly good boxers, but the whole family are fighters. They've been growing up bare knuckle fighting since they were kids. So, and if you look at bare knuckle fighting, they're not exactly the big athletic boxing types that you see. It's so, like, for him, like, putting on a lot of weight and stuff like that doesn't take away his skill and aggression and will to win and all that. And he'll be laughy and jokey about it. Yeah, it was that. What was it he said? He sat up and he was sort of rattling his belly, and he was like, "Does this look like the body of a boxer?" Yeah. But I mean, a lot of heavyweights get big. Especially as they get older, it doesn't necessarily stop them. The dad bod is not a blockage to a heavyweight.
I can attest to that. Yeah.
Fortunately, me not so much. But it's like, a few more Guinness, and I might. Yeah.
Let's talk about Wilder for a second. So 39 knockouts in 40 fights. Is he massively underestimated? Just as a slight favorite in the current betting markets here.
Well, I don't know. I think Wilder's actually got bigger issues on the credibility front than Fury. I mean, no, it isn't his fault. There just wasn't really too many people to fight domestically. After 40 fights, we still don't truly know how good or bad Wilder is. So, I mean, look, let's look at his last 7 fights, right? Because they're the ones that matter out of the nearly 40 he's fought as a professional. So, I'm not going to do these in order. I'm just going to kind of run through them. Bermain Stavern was an undersized heavyweight at 6'2", because that is small for a heavyweight. He was already 37, 38, and he had, he was already past a very limited prime. Johan Duhaupas, I think it was how it was said. I mean, I had to laugh at Fury on this on a video the other night where he was like, "Oh yeah, that French guy that we've all heard of, right?" He was a brave fighter with limited ability. He had high work rate, and I know he really did have proper heart. He'd take a punch. But Wilder, supposedly a big puncher, didn't seriously hurt him once in the fight. He was simply exhausted when the ref stopped it. And again, in his late 30s. Eric Molina, lovely guy, but a school teacher who took up boxing at 23, which is like 10 years after most people do, just so he could lose weight. It took Wilder 9 rounds to get rid of him, and he actually hurt Wilder at some point. Joshua disposed of Molina in 3 rounds, and Wilder's supposed to be the one who's the big hitter. To me, that's not a power puncher. All right? And then you have Artur Szpilka. He was a former football hooligan. Seriously, that was how this guy got into fighting. So this is a guy outside the stadium, throwing bottles and stuff, became a boxer. Yeah. His 3 losses that he had, they were all by knockout, and even then, a little bit of basic movement, and Wilder was struggling. And tell me a fighter that he might face very soon who's good at movement.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. Gerald Washington, a football player who went pro in boxing at the age of 30. He gave Wilder problems for 5 rounds until Wilder eventually landed that big punch. Chris Arreola, decent fighter, again, 36 at the time of the fight, way past his prime. He'd already lost to Vitaly Klitschko, Vladimir's younger brother, a few years before, and he lost to Stavern twice. Note that he managed to KO Molina in the first round when he fought him, which Wilder couldn't do. And then last, and this is probably the only credible fight for me on the list, was Luis Ortiz, who not only was a good champion, but he's also like a super nice guy when you see his interviews, proper good advertisement for the sport. And Wilder beat him recently. He's the only top-level heavyweight for me that Wilder's fought, and the only one who was unbeaten. But at the grand old age of 39, Ortiz dominated the early rounds, and he nearly put Wilder to bed like a naughty school child in the 7th. It was like it was that close to thinking everyone was like, okay, Ortiz has done it again, and he's just knocked this guy out. So I don't know. I think credibility problems.
It seems to me that, there's a pattern of what you suggested here, and that is that Wilder, a lot of the success comes off the back of facing older fighters who are past their prime. And there's also been suggestions here, right, that he's going to struggle with height and reach advantage that Fury has. What do you think about that?
2 separate things. I guess I wouldn't be the only one who's brought up the age thing. Fury himself said, Ortiz, forgetting his age, was a good man, but we know that Father Time catches up with everybody. And I think that's fair. Others were even more scathing. I looked at one forum comment and someone said Wilder's fought 36 nobodies and 4 old men. That's probably going a bit far. I mean, he's still a world-class fighter. It's not unusual practice in modern boxing. A lot of fighters seem to be keen on keeping undefeated records, going 40-0, 50-0, than they do facing the most serious competition, with top fighters avoiding each other. Mayweather fought Pac-Man years after that should have happened. Canelo waited for Triple G to get old before he took a shot. And Hopkins and Roy Jones Jr., by the time they got in the ring together, they weren't just out of their primes, they were in a different weight division by that point. So far as your height reach thing goes, I'm going to be fair to Wilder here. That's completely false. He's fought at least 8 of what we would consider large heavyweights, around the 6'5" mark or taller. I mean, Fury's bigger, no doubt. The guy's 6'9" and 19 stone. But one glance at the face-offs, if you see him on the thing, like, honestly, Fury is the bigger guy. He makes Wilder look small. And when you make a 6'5" guy look small, you're a big man.
Yeah, doing well.
But Wilder might be smaller, but he has abnormally long reach. Honestly, his arms are so long, it's ridiculous. He's only actually an inch shorter in reach than Fury himself, so I don't think that one's a big factor. The age thing might be, because although Fury doesn't look it, people forget he's only 30. He's 3 years younger than Wilder. So if Fury really is fully fit, well, I think that you might give. That's the first time Wilder's going to have fought a really, really, really big top-level contender who's younger than him.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is the argument, though, that he's rushing a fight at this level. Do you think that there should have been a couple of more kind of token fights before this?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think most people would agree with that. He's definitely rushed this. He's trained hard the last year, it's true. He's gone from that being out of shape thing, and he's just trained consistently right the way through, like, very dedicated. And like, I've been watching the training sessions he's running right now. I don't actually think he's been in this good shape at any time in his career. Even when he fought Klitschko, he's looking very fast. Whether he can carry that over 12 rounds without gassing out, that's a much harder question to answer. I don't know. I mean, how many rounds do you think you could go? But then there's ring rust, right, as well. So he's only had 2 fights back since the ban, and neither were tough opponents. He didn't really look like the Fury of old in the ring last time out, when he fought up in Northern Ireland there.
Yeah.
He's come down from Abel Sanchez's high-altitude training camp at Big Bear now, and he's training at sea level at Freddie Roach's gym in LA. I think that's the right choice for him, this close to the fight, conditioning-wise. One thing you can say is he's picked out good sparring partners. He's got former IBF and WA Cruiserweight champion Murat Gassiev, and specifically the one that excited me was he was sparring with heavyweight Joe the Juggernaut Joyce. Joyce is a monster of a pressure fighter, and he hits very hard. And that's exactly the kind of day-to-day test that Fury needs to face Wilder, for me. I would have liked to have seen him fight 2 to 3 more fights between now and the end of next year, and setting himself up for a title shot early in 2020. Though this way, if he beats both Wilder and then Joshua, and you add that to the Klitschko victory, and the gap and the ban and what he's had to come back from, he will actually then have a proper solid legacy. He'll actually be able to call himself a great fighter. Yeah. To go through that and do it, like, there'd be no doubt. If Joshua and Wilder had fought first, it would have been Joshua who ended Wilder's unbeaten run, for sure. And then Fury would have only beaten one of them rather than both. If Fury does win this, however, he's also probably going to have to do it all over again before getting a shot at Joshua, because Wilder's defense of his title is voluntary, so there's no doubt going to be a rematch if it doesn't go the way Wilder, kind of wants it to.
Okay, so we know that Wilder is a hard puncher and he's got a good chin, but there seems to be, this is feeding a lot into what I've read anyways, there's a narrative of this is power against skill. So does Wilder have the skill to beat Fury if Fury turns up and is his best?
The easy answer would be no. Right? Okay. It's that simple. But the slightly more complicated answer is I don't think Wilder's kind of underprepared, and I also don't, like, just because he's a puncher, like, don't dismiss him. He's a smart guy and a reasonably smart fighter, because they're not the same thing. He's not as technically skilled as Fury is, not even close. A few fighters he's already faced, he's struggled with, and traditionally speaking, when it's world-class boxer versus world-class puncher, then history favours the boxer if the puncher can't find that one shot. I'm not sure that I think Wilder's underestimating the Fury of old. I just think he's not sure where he's at now, and he's kind of overconfident given how unpredictable Fury is. And I think he thinks a little too highly of himself because he hasn't had the schooling coming up through the ranks that you used to see. Despite his record, the fact is the great American heavyweights of old are long gone, with so many more athletes going down the NFL route instead of boxing.
Yeah.
And Wilder's the best the States currently have, but he's no Tyson or Holyfield. I mean, Klitschko suffered the same, that he didn't have many challenges after Lewis hung up his gloves in 2003, I think it was. The heavyweight division as a whole has been in massive decline. The big difference for me is that Klitschko was aware of exactly where he was, and he would have been a great fighter even in previous generations, whereas Wilder probably wouldn't have been. I mean, someone like Mike Tyson would have crucified the guy.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a power puncher. You know, Wilder might hit very hard, but he doesn't hit anywhere near as hard as someone like Foreman or Frazier or Tyson.
So we've got a selection of comments here from notable personalities from the industry. I want to summarize, Lee, what the experts have to say and see how it compares to what we've been speaking about so far.
Cool.
So Amir Khan, former unified light welterweight world champion, and he of the glass chin, says Fury is unbeaten, unpredictable. You can't sleep on him. Derek Chisora, currently the WBA international champion, who has lost to Fury previously. He hasn't held back here. He says, Fury needs 2 to 3 fights more. It's too early. He's taking it for the money. That's the way the fight game is. Eddie Hearn, who manages Anthony Joshua, is actually quite happy about it. He comments, it grows the following fight for AJ. Fury shouldn't take it yet. Evander Holyfield, former undisputed champion, seems split between the two. His opinion here, Fury wouldn't do it if he didn't have the belief. Wilder will have the confidence from his record. Teddy Atlas, former trainer to Mike Tyson, also weighed in. He said, Wilder has the mindset and physicality. Wilder's the purest puncher in the division, but not skillful. Fury, for a big guy, fights like a lightweight and will frustrate Wilder. What do you make of these comments, Lee?
I think they're mostly on the ball. I'd be listening to closely to a couple of people there like Holyfield and Atlas because like they know boxing like few others, and they summarise it well. The most fascinating take on the whole thing I heard was actually from a little-known guy called Walt Harris, who was actually the only guy I could find who'd sparred with both of them. He said he'd never been hit as hard as Wilder did, but that he'd never felt so outclassed boxing than with Fury. He just couldn't predict him at all. And as a boxer, that's just so hard to deal with. And this was after Fury's first comeback fight. So it's clear he's still plenty of skill in the tank. It's all going to come down to Wilder finding a way past to land that big hand and put Fury out the fight.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to ask you this. You box yourself. Yeah, of course this is going to be a question. If it was you, who would you want to be up against between Wilder and Fury?
Well, thankfully, I mean, I didn't start till 32, so thankfully I'm both a welterweight and a rank amateur, so I don't have to face either of them. If I was a heavyweight and good enough to be at that level, like being rational about it, it would be Fury. I wouldn't want to fight. Wilder's predictable, and you can train for that and give yourself a fighting edge. Even if you think he's stronger than you and hits harder, if a fight is that one-dimensional, you can prepare for it. You can't predict the unpredictable, and that's Fury.
Okay, so we won't see Lee Gwilliam in the ring anytime soon with either.
No. I mean, the last match I had was like a charity match in October last year, and I got schooled. So I'm gonna stick to just training and sparring on a Friday, I think.
Last and most importantly, what bets should we be looking at for this fight, and what bets are you going to place yourself?
Okay, well, I mean, they're the same. I think this fight, like boxing bettors tend to favour their own intuition when it comes to who wins. And given how tight the odds are on both fighters, I don't think anyone favours a simple bet there for outright win without calling the method. I mean, you could do, if you're a Wilder fan, call him to win. If you're a Fury fan, call him to win. But really, for me, like the first market that starts to look interesting is the over/under rounds market. It's a little less tight, and I also think the advantage of this fight is most people say it's pretty clear how it's going to end one way or the other, depending on which fight you think is going to win. So it's either going to go the distance for Fury on points or Wilder winning a late knockout as Fury tires. That's how most people see this fight. So as a result, the over 9.5 rounds market is probably the safest bet out there, which still carries some decent win potential. It also negates who wins, because it doesn't matter if you're over 9.5 rounds, as long as the fight goes past the middle of the 9th round, it doesn't matter which fighter wins. Similarly, Wilder to win in rounds 10 to 12 is 11 to 1, and Fury to win in 10 to 12 is 20 to 1. So despite the fact I don't think Fury can knock him out, at 20 to 1, that's probably a nice side bet. So depending on your chosen fighter, both of those are nice odd sets for a specific prediction. Fury to win by decision is looking really good value at 2 to 1, considering like that's only one of the 2 bets you can have there. Quite surprised at that. There's no way he's winning by knockout barring a miracle. So if you're a Fury fan, I'd back that as a safer option than choosing a rounds. And these are my picks for what I'll be betting. I'll be betting over 9.5 rounds, Fury to win by decision, and a side bet for Fury to win in rounds 10 to 12 just because of the odds. If you're Wilder's camp, also take over 9.5 rounds, but Wilder by knockout or TKO and Wilder in rounds 10 to 12. Now, the difference between the 2 bets there is that all 3 bets can come in for you on Wilder's, whereas only 2 can come in for Fury, but Wilder's odds are shorter, so you're going to win about the same money on both. It's just a case of picking it out the right way. If you want higher odds than that in this fight, you're going to have to put your money with your opinion and take a real narrow bet on exact outcome in round, which I really don't advocate. It's too hard to call. There's some clear things in this fight that make it easier to say, look, Wilder by knockout, Fury by decision, go down the betting market on that, and there's still reasonable odds there to be had.
Okay, well, there you go, folks. Some very interesting betting options there outside of the outright market. That about wraps up our preview. Lee, thank you very much for joining me today and providing some insight. I'm sure we'll speak again on the podcast very, very soon.
Yeah, I'll be. It's been lovely to be here, and I'll be back soon.
Good stuff. Make sure to check out Gambling.com today for the best sports books and odds. Give us a follow over on Twitter at gambling_com too, and let us know what you thought of today's show. And until next time, we will say bye-bye.